candidate for U.S. Senate out of Kentucky. The people that I trust over at the Senate Conservatives Fund called you the best constitutional candidate they have seen. I think it was those guys, and they have endorsed you, have they not, Matt?
They have indeed, and I'm very grateful for that, and it's always good to be back on with you, Glenn, so thank you.
Today you are filling out the paperwork to officially run for U.S. Senate and go up against Mitch McConnell.
This is indeed the day. This is the day that he has tried very desperately to prevent from happening, when we, the people, actually are going to stand up and offer folks a true choice in this primary. So it's an exciting day here in Kentucky.
Okay, so I'm going to be real honest with you. How, Matt, do you expect to not only beat Mitch McConnell, and I know his numbers are ridiculous now. He looks beatable even by a Democrat. But how are you then going to beat a Democrat if indeed you do beat Mitch McConnell?
The irony is, I think for me, it will be harder to beat him in the primary than it will be to beat the Democrat in the general. I have heard from the number of Democrats who are switching parties because they don't vote Democrat in the generals anyway, and the number of Democrats who've said, I can't switch, won't switch, but I'll be with you, from May 21st on. I've had people working in an Allison Grimes booth wearing an Allison Grimes T-shirt come up to me and say, I'm going to be voting for you on the side. So there's not a lot of enthusiasm for her. I think the fact is we need to eat this elephant one bite at a time, and I think we will continue to take steps forward. Every time I'm on your show, I know you always chuckle when I say the name of my website, but I kid you not, Glenn, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the amazing bounce that it gets every time I mention mattbevin.com. People come, your listeners are enthused, they're engaged, and I appreciate that. I really do.
Well, my listeners, I said about 20 minutes ago that I wrote a big political figure who people would know, who wrote out and said, I'd really like to meet with you. And, I have no problem meeting with people, but I wanted to send back a very strong message on, I don't know what you are planning on accomplishing because you're going to walk into a buzzsaw. But, whatever. I think, as I wrote to this individual, the GOP is so out of control. They didn't have a come to Jesus moment after John McCain lost. They didn't have a come to Jesus moment after 2010. They didn't have a come to Jesus moment after they gave us Mitt Romney. And they haven't had a come to Jesus meeting or a moment even now after Ted Cruz. Look at what John McCain is saying. These guys have absolutely no clue as to what the American people actually want. With that being said, Matt, you're walking into a buzzsaw because McConnell is a very powerful guy. I think he's one of the worst in the Senate because he appears to be, he's like Orrin Hatch. He seems to be a nice guy on the surface, and when you know him behind the scenes, very bad. Very, very bad and destructive. But tell me how you're going to do it. What is it that...
He's a very vicious contender, no question about it. Very Machiavellian. He thrives on and takes pride in being feared. Because that's the nature of bullies, and they come in many forms, including political bullies. But there has never been a time. This is a schism of sorts, but it's not ironically to the degree that the outside press and media would like to see. But in reality, what we are seeing is a battle for the heart and soul, not only of the Republican Party, but for the entire political process. Because what we are seeing in this race as a microcosm of what's happening nationally is a battle for whether we, the people, truly still have a voice and choose to exercise that voice. Or will we be apathetic? Will we sit on our hands? And will we sit back and wait for the handful to self-propagate and self-select to tell us when and where and how we should line up? And I think it is my job to use the best of my abilities to be a good steward of the talents and skills that I have to exercise the will of the people by being in this race and being their voice. This is a battle between progressivism and limited government, between sometimes paying attention to the Constitution or recognizing it as the law of the land.
What do you think what do you think of what the president did yesterday?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know why at this point he doesn't just come out and say we're all going to get a pony. Because, seriously, why not? Why not? He has just as much ability to make it happen and it will make the low information folks just as happy and excited as anything else he
does. The president have the ability to do what he said he was going to do, to come out and say that, you know what, we're just going to suspend these rules here, and we're going to tell these insurance companies that, you know, you can't suspend people's insurance policies?
No, I mean, because he's never worked a day in the private sector, he doesn't have any idea how it works. But honestly, Glenn, if you look at what he actually said, all he simply said is that they have the option of not canceling policies. Well, thank you. They had that option arguably before, but the point is they can't afford to now that these things are in place. And so it's basically that you have the option to not seek profit and to lose money. Go for it. Now I've done my duty. I've done my part as president. See, I fixed it.
Tell me what happens to business tell me what this means to businesses, this speech. Anything?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, let's talk about, the business of the insurance business. I mean, you basically have now thrown a grenade into the middle of this and absolutely blown it to pieces. Blown it to pieces with
Why?
Obamacare. And you now have people saying, oh, hey, that's okay. You can just carry on as before. Well, no, you can't now, actually. And so what this is doing is this is destroying the business, the ability of these insurance companies to even make a profit and to conduct themselves. You're creating now basically a very, very high-risk pool that's going to be exorbitant to implement, and the people who are in it are not going to be able to even afford to be. And now he's saying that for a year, at least until we get to the next election cycle, we'll try not to have another, we'll have this low-risk pool where people will get the same old thing they always got. It's just a mess.
Okay, so
tell me, to repeal it.
Tell me what your thoughts are on John McCain coming out and saying basically that we need to repeal it.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on. Where was he? Where has he been? This is the problem we have, Glenn, is that we've got these crusty curmudgeons of the Senate who do nothing when they are called upon to be true leaders. But then under the cover of paranoia and panic and crisis, they come out and run around like so many chicken littles and pretend they're coming up with solutions. I'm just tired of it. This is why not only in this race, but I hope I pray to God, somebody in Arizona will step up and save the people of Arizona and the people of America from 6 more years of that guy.
What is the most important thing? If you could get people in Kentucky to understand one thing, what would it be?
We need men and women in the U.S. Congress, in both the House and Senate, who respect the Constitution of the United States as the absolute law of the land, exactly as written. Not when it's to their political advantage or personal advantage, not when they can throw it under the bus while someone's not looking, but to uphold the Constitution. It's an extraordinary document. It has held us in extraordinarily good stead. And it's so simple. It's so tight and concise and straightforward. If people understood that, and if we managed our government according to that document, so much of what we're talking about here would be a moot point.
Where do you stand on the Fed?
My gracious, we're seeing right now, and heaven help us with Yellen if she comes aboard here. I think for starters, we need to audit the Fed. I'd like to see more than that happen, and I think it will. But if we start with auditing it, I know that the light of truth shines brightly. And if we audit it and understand who's zooming who benefits, who's actually playing with our monetary
take care of
supply,
itself.
These things, I think it would be very cathartic.
Real quick, what is the problem with Yellen?
I just think she is far too... she's like so many in the Obama administration. She's somebody who believes, as best I can determine, that the government and the government being in charge of things is a better solution than free markets. Bernanke, arguably, if you went back and read some of the things he wrote before he became Fed chair, he actually had some pretty good, solid, Milton Friedman-based ideas. He's had limited ability to truly implement them, but my goodness, I think with Yellen, you don't even have somebody starting from that kind of a premise.
Matt, when I was in the White House one time, and I was called into the Oval Office, and the president was a little pissy, and it was Bush, and he said to me, "Don't worry, because whoever gets in after me will pretty much do exactly the same thing because they will see that the president's hands are tied. And so no matter who it is, doesn't matter if it's, the guy who became president or Hillary Clinton, it won't matter because they will do almost the same thing. And I thought to myself, he tried to say that as a comforting thing. I found that horrifying. What is it that why is it we should believe you that you're not going to go in and just become the same thing and realize and be convinced that your hands are tied, Matt? This is the way the system works here. You just haven't been here long enough, and you just don't know, and you don't have any choices, and that's just the way it is.
There's a difference between people who go to cast votes and people who go to be a voice. My pledge to people is to be a voice. I can't promise that I'm going to do everything perfectly or that 100% of people will always be happy. But rather than just going to vote, I will go to be a voice and to fight for the American people, to fight for conservative values, to fight for limited government, to fight for a restoration of our Constitution and of every one of our constitutional rights that has been eroded. I am not going there. I am married, Glenn. I have a wife who loves me. I have 9 children who love me. I have a dog that loves me. I am not going to Washington to make friends. I am willing to be the guy who stands there, as folks like Ted Cruz have recently done, and get my teeth kicked in to do the right thing.
MattBevin.com, running in Kentucky for the U.S. Senate against Mitch McConnell. Matt, good to have you on, and we wish you luck as you file papers today to officially announce your candidacy for U.S. Senate.
Thank you so much.
You bet. God bless. MattBevin.com.